Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it. Well, we're here for another edition of Through the Gates to Save the Hunt, and I have two special guests from the Pitkin County area, and I have Nikki Day and Amanda Cerveny.
Cerveny.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
That's okay.
You can slap me here. So, and both of them are the spouses, the wives, and partners of two livestock producers in Pitkin County that have had to deal with trials and tribulations over the course of the last 7 months since the second reintroduction of wolves that came from the Grand County area, the Copper Creek Pack. A couple weeks ago, we had Doug Brochet and Tim Richard with the Middle Park Stock Growers, and both of them were in the middle of a lot of things going on up in that neck of the woods. So I'll start with you, Nikki. I'll let you introduce yourself, give us a little bit of background. We're going to have an open conversation, dialogue, and whatever you guys want to discuss, but we wanted to give a little bit more of credence to these conversations because it's starting to affect other people in other areas of the state. And ironically, it's this particular pack is affecting people in other parts of the state after they were removed and held in captivity for a while for a variety of reasons that Doug and I and Tim had previously discussed. So introduce yourself, give us a little bit of background and who you are and where you're at.
My name is Nikki Day, and my husband is Brad Day. We've lived in the Old Snowmass area for, myself 25 years, Brad 30. And I grew up in the area, more Carbondale area. But, we have been ranching at the McCabe Ranch in Old Snowmass for quite some time. 25 years, 30 years.
And you're where did you meet Brad?
I met Brad right out of high school. He had just relocated from Wisconsin to our Roaring Fork Valley. And, so I just met him through some friends, and we were quite young. And it was like 90s. 95.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got kids?
We do.
Yeah.
We have two daughters, Emma and Josie. They are 23 and 21. We raised them at McCabe Ranch, and I can explain more about McCabe Ranch at some point.
Yeah. So do they live in the general vicinity?
Actually, they're both kind of off doing their own thing now. Mm-hmm. Our oldest daughter is a civil engineer. She is working for a big construction company in Oregon currently. Mm-hmm. And Josie is home for the summer after being in Texas for the last 3 winters. She's been apprenticing with a horse trainer in Texas, learning. And, so she's home for the summer helping us with the, cattle. She rides with us every day. Yesterday, we just had a huge, long day. We had to go to a fence, repair it. The cattle had gone above our grazing allotment. And so we had to get them back and get the fence repaired. And it was a good family day. It was just the 4 of us. Our oldest daughter is home right now from Oregon, so it was great fun.
So just real briefly, explain what a grazing allotment is.
Oh, well, we have a forest permit lease We have actually several. One is up Capitol Creek, and one is on East Cypress Creek. And the one up Capitol Creek is so close to Capitol Peak, which is a 14er. There's so much foot traffic, people climbing, camping. Our cattle also love that area. There's great grasses up there. But what they tend to do is go to the camping areas and they want to destroy the cattle are making a mess where these backpackers and hikers are trying to camp. So a few years ago, I mean more probably like 12 to 15 years ago, we did a boundary fence to keep them on the lower part of the grazing allotment. So they're fenced out of the Capitol Peak area.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how many cattle do you run on that particular
that
piece?
particular piece, I believe, is 240 pair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So cows and calves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the wintertime, they're pretty much down on the mothership of the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the home place.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that
and
gives-
other lease
yeah, other
places.
lease probably.
Yeah.
It gives a pretty good idea. Turn it over to Amanda. Introduce yourself, and then once you do that, then I'm going to try to connect the dots to paint a visual of where you're at and compared to each other. So go ahead.
I'm Amanda Cerveny. I'm married to Michael Cerveny, and we are adjacent to Nikki, pretty much, as far as neighbors. Our husbands, Brad Day, and my husband Mike grew up together in Wisconsin. They've been lifelong friends, and Brad, Nikki's husband, pretty much they connected and my husband decided, to give ranching a go, and so we met back in 2006. We're married in 2007. We have two boys, Alex and James, or Jimmy, 24 and 14, so there's quite the age gap, but we are not too far from these guys, and I did not grow up in a ranching, so to speak, family like Nikki did, and got into all of this for the most part once I married Mike, as far as the ranching goes. Had some influence growing up. I was a Colorado native, born in the Four Corners area, Cortez. My stepdad was born in Burlington, Colorado. He came from a 400 head operation back then. He was working from the time he could lift a shovel, met my mom, and decided that he couldn't make a living at ranching, so he stayed in it with, actually, he got into construction. He had kind of a background with that, and so growing up, we had that influence of agriculture and that hard work ethic that comes along with it, and the rest is history. We're married in 2007. Mike, along with Brad, they've been at it the same time. Mike runs or has done most of the ranching for Lost Marbles Ranch up there, like I said, adjacent to McCabe. And they have together always, shared in all of this together, as far as they've got it. Now, let me remember here, is it you guys have forest, we have BLM?
Yes.
That we kind of, okay. This is the difference between a real cowgirl and one who's on the sidelines and working a different job besides ranching. I'm kind of on the background, or the back a little bit of things, but also kind of right there on the front lines too, just kind of doing my thing. So that's
You said you have another job.
I do. I actually work for a stone yard. I sell building materials for contractors, architects, and designers, landscapers in the valley. So I'm in that construction kind of market of things on top of when I'm not doing my regular job. I'm there to be kind of a hand for Mike when he needs somebody, whether it's during the calving season and making sure something gets in, or if he needs help with an IV, preg checks at one point, to branding, whatever. I'm kind of that second hand when he needs somebody else to be there and be in the backdrop of whatever is needed to get done.
So let me ask you, so how close are you to each other as far as your home places?
We're within walking distance, really.
Yeah.
Are you?
Half a mile.
If even that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so paint the picture. This isn't a subdivision.
No.
It's ranch properties, forest properties that are in surrounding areas of that.
Mm-hmm.
How many neighbors do you have within earshot or sight?
Well, McCabe is different and unique because it's got it kind of ties into a subdivision with an HOA, even though it's spread out.
Yeah.
And they kind of manage and take care of that, correct?
Also, yeah, it's the family that owns McCabe. Can we go into that?
Yeah.
Since, the family that owns McCabe, their last name is Collins. They bought the ranch back, I think, in 1982, and Mr. Collins was a developer, and he sold off a few large lots on the property, like, say, 35 acres. So he sold those off, and then other people were able to purchase them and build homes. The ranch is still run as a ranch, but you just have like some random home in your farm ground, you know. But we're still able to farm and, you know, produce hay on those.
That's becoming more and more of an option for landowners that I know of around the state and other states as well.
Yeah.
Whereas those properties are bought within the property, but the property then is still managed as a whole in totality as a ranch.
It's still run as a ranch. Like the cattle still graze on their, you know, they still get fed in the wintertime on their land. And yeah, it's really a great HOA, you know. So
and how many residents are in there?
I can say for sure because that's kind of not my thing, but I want to say I think the number is 14 or 15.
Okay, so it's not giant.
No.
And do those any of those people have a stake in the cattle, or the cattle is just part of the entire process?
Yeah, the way they formed this HOA, that the fathering parcel of the ranch is in control of everything: water, cattle, agriculture. They make all the decisions.
And does either one of the places, do they produce hay, or they do hay production and cattle and anything else out of either one of the places?
No, I think mostly
primarily cattle and hay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for Nikki, and being in this unique HOA, the people who have bought into it, they bought into also that life and what they want to see and envision for their own properties, just as an observation.
Yeah, wonderful homeowners that live around us. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll ask you first, then I'll ask you. Give us a typical day of what you would do in September of 2024. And then you see where I'm kind of going with this. What would a typical day be for you on the ranch in September of 2024, preparing for the fall and the winter, and you would get up and do what in a day of operations on the McCabe Ranch?
Well, for my side, you know, and Brad's side would be a little bit different, but because he is in charge of a lot of irrigation, I have this amount compared to what he has, you know. So, yeah, we would still be irrigating in the fall. The cows are starting to trickle home through all the private pieces on their way back.
Because they know.
They do.
Yeah, they know. It's getting close.
Yeah. So irrigate, maybe get some cows off the road, because there is a lot of that. There's a lot of private places on the way home that we don't lease. In our area, I don't know why, but a lot of landowners have a really hard time upkeeping their fences.
Mm-hmm.
So they always seem to think that it's our problem, even though Colorado is a fence-out state.
Mm-hmm.
So, a day would be irrigating, maybe getting on a horse and cleaning up cows off the road. Possibly still some haying going on, like a second cut of alfalfa, or which I don't have to do much of anymore. We have a very nice crew of people at the ranch, so I'm not in the haying operation anymore. I used to be quite a bit.
But it's not like it was 4 hours a day. It's a 8, 10, 12-hour day, depending on what you have to get done and the weather conditions. And you've got cattle coming in, and you're getting ready to turn around and ship calves and get them to.
So we're processing them, and
you're doing all of that. Same for you, or a little bit different?
It's a little bit different as I work, a regular job, but Mike is doing all of that, and he's doing it himself.
Mm-hmm.
So that just means there's certain, obviously, seasons in which I see him more and I see him less. And he's echoing the same thing that's happening with the neighbors, finishing up some irrigation. The cows are starting to kind of make their way home, that kind of thing. Kind of getting ready to ramp up for fall and winter, but shutting things down. And same thing, if something's out there wandering, it's getting it back in and making sure everything, always checking the fences, and that seems like a never-ending thing, but he's out there getting ready to get into the next season. There's a very small window between these different seasons. He has one other person that does kind of, he's on the peripheral that helps him. His name is Lee Sullivan. He's been with the ranch too for about 30 plus years, even more than Mike. So he's kind of that person that's always there to be there and give Mike whatever relief and support he needs. But they're echoing the same thing. These guys are doing the same things together. My husband, though, is more kind of a one-man show, and that's hard. I've accepted a lot of things in the different seasons, and that I'm just going to see him or I'm not going to see him. And then with having a 14-year-old, he's also been very involved with our kiddo and sports.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll start to ramp up again, and he gets very much, he's a hands-on dad as much as he can be in helping coach the football team. He's also done the baseball team and baseball, basketball, and other sports. So depending on those seasons too, he's very much in the throes of whatever that season brings at the moment. And I'm usually kind of just back there in the background, making sure they've got food and everything's where it needs to be, and checking on things that I know where they need to belong. And if something looks like it's out of order, then it's a phone call. But he's between the ranch and right now being a very active dad, and we'll get into some of how that plays in later too with what we've experienced.
So I've been around the agricultural community all my life, and the wildlife and the hunting and fishing and trapping side. It's a pretty tight-knit community. I mean, even though you might not, you haven't spent a tremendous amount of time together over 18 years or whatever, you're becoming closer for a variety of reasons, unintended maybe, but maybe in the long run it's better for personal relationships. But the ag community comes out and helps one another.
For sure.
Absolutely.
That's, even though you might not know something specific about somebody, it's not uncommon to have a branding or a gathering or a shipping process to where all of a sudden you went from 1 or 2 people to 12 or 14 or 16 people to turn around and help you get done, because then it's expected that you and all your neighbors go help them.
Absolutely. For sure.
Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, yeah. That's how it works.
Because I've been to a lot of places, there's a family of 4, just like what you're saying, and you go to a branding and there's 26 people there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, nothing skips a beat. And, we may not see each other for, one or just a passing on the road, but those times happen that all of a sudden people get together. It's this unspoken language of, helping your neighbor in this livelihood of, it's just what you do. And I love that so much, this sense of family in the community. And it's truly not words, but followed by action. And it's a way of life that I absolutely love, and that I can't teach that with my boys. They see it, they feel it, and it just resonates with them too, and the men that I want them to be and who they're becoming. That you help your neighbors, you help your friends, and you get the job done no matter what that
and
takes.
that's something that you don't normally see in today's society when it comes to people that live on the same street in a subdivision, that their kids play ball together, they go to school together, they go to church together, whatever. But getting everybody to go to work together is a different deal. Well, there's too many people that, and I know this in the volunteerism side of things, people want to do something, but they don't want to do that.
Right.
And people think that they offer, but they're always too busy for that. That's not necessarily the case on the agriculture side of things, and I don't care if they're farmers or ranchers. I don't care if they're in the middle part of the state, the eastern plains, the western part of the state, Wyoming, or whatever. That the old adage that you saw during the Yellowstone series, as much drama as that might include, it gives a pretty good synopsis of the landscape. When they needed something, the other ranches showed up.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe not all of them did, but enough of them from each one to where they didn't cut themselves too short, but it made it easier on everybody else. And I think that that's what we're seeing on a variety of different levels that come together, that is more publicly observant at this point in time. And so, I mean, do you value those times?
Oh, yeah. And Dan, to your point, the whole reason that we're sitting here is we have a whole slew of people that we've never met in our lifetime across the way at Grand County who reached out to us to offer us this support and guidance that, we would have never have been able to navigate on our own. And
Never knew those people at all.
Absolutely
No,
not. And my first conversation with Doug Boucher is he said, the best thing that's come out of this is this brotherhood, and it's been absolutely immediate, that you're not left, standing alone, that, hey, we're here for you, and it's not just with words. And it's been amazing to meet these people and give us an idea of what to expect, what's coming down the pike. And when someone is offering that ability to lend a hand, that it's not just words, it's definitely with action. And to your point, just in life in general, I heard it once that service to your fellow man is never convenient. No one says, can I wait until after 5 o'clock for my car to break down and you can come get me, or what works for you? And that's the real test of people and their characters, helping you when it's not convenient. And that's really what it all boils down to. And it's just, I can't teach these lessons to my boys. They're seeing it with these men. It's amazing, and it's they've been a blessing in this community beyond what I could describe. It's pretty cool.
Did you think in September of 24 that you would be put into this position a year later, of what you've had to deal with or what's been dumped on you, and the circumstances that have surrounded that?
I did not. And to be honest, I was in denial about the whole thing till we had our first,
It's not my backyard.
Yeah, it's not my backyard. We just happened to be on vacation in January, the day they dumped him. And I was trying to be really positive. It might just be okay. It might just not work out. Why would these wolves want to stay here in this over-human populated area? They're from British Columbia. They don't see humans very often up there. Why would they want to be here? So I was in denial about it, for that it would be a problem. I just thought they would leave, you know.
But when all of this stuff transpired 5 years ago with Proposition 114, and when the vote went through, and this process of determining how to establish this plan, did you think in the back of your head, what if, or did you think, I'm not worried about it?
Dan, if you don't mind me jumping in, Nikki, you know, as women and just as enough as we have to do with just daily life of being there to help our guys, doing what needs to be done and coming home and taking care of family and doing all those things, you know, you're not really, you hear about this stuff in the background, and it's almost kind of like the it's not going to happen to me situation a little bit. You don't think that it's going to be something that you have to personally deal with, I think. Maybe that's a naive way of thinking. You know, I would say it's probably safe to say we've all kind of heard snippets here and there, and you kind of think, oh, you know, that stinks for those guys. But then
additionally, it took multiple years to get something in place before it actually happened.
Right.
You know, and so they had X amount of days to get something done before December 31st of 2023, and as that started to play out, people were trying to figure out, okay, well, how does this affect me, and where is this going to happen? And
for sure,
I don't think that people actually thought that wolves were going to be dumped someplace, and then within a week, some of those wolves would be 150 or 200 miles away from where they dumped them.
Right.
And I think that. And I'm not putting words in either one of your mouths, but looking at what the process was, you had to think in the back of your head that it's not going to be here.
Well, in all fairness, I can't speak for Nikki, but in my mind, and, you know, they had Director Davis, he had quoted this himself. We thought we would get some sort of notice. I mean, when a predator comes in and it's of the humankind, there's a notice to the community that there's an ability to prepare. And we had no opportunity to prepare.
You didn't get an Amber Alert.
No, absolutely not, by no means. And maybe they should consider doing that if they're not going to even talk to you. Something that says, hey, wolf alert. But no, and you know, the thing is you always want to be able to set yourself up in the best way possible, and I think that's what we do as wives, as mothers, and the stewards of the home. We get into protection mode, and the men do too, but how can we prepare for this and, you know, feel that regardless of what comes our way, we have a sense of being able to navigate it, and then of course you learn by trial and error. Just the ability to prepare. And we didn't get any of that. And it's too bad, because I was under the idea, and when I go back and I read things, and all of a sudden when you're now in the throes of it, it becomes important. You become educated super fast. I had thought, not quoting me on the words, but there's things within the management plan in which they would alert, you know, the community to that to some degree. And that's where I guess trying to process it all and trying to figure out, how do you prepare for something you know nothing about?
Exactly.
How do you prepare? And on top of that, not only do you have that, but how do you prepare for something, you know, it's my understanding as everything unfolds, we're not just inheriting a pack of wolves, we're other places, and I hear this all the time, where it's been successful, great, absolutely. The common thread here is we didn't inherit a pack of wolves that had a history of being, you know, behaved or whatever they're supposed to be doing. We inherited a problematic pack against
You
the
already saw what
management
the
plan.
wolves were doing up in Grand County. And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
what they were having to deal with from the Middle Park guys and Conway Farrell and Merritt Lanke, and I mean, you just saw what was happening. But as the crow flies, that's, you know, 150, 200 miles away or whatever the heck it is.
Yeah.
And it would have to be something to where the analogy I would give is somebody that lives in Denver, for example, sees what's going on in Laramie, Wyoming, or in Wheatland, Wyoming. That's like, well, that doesn't affect me.
For
it
sure.
has no bearing on me whatsoever.
And I've had conversations with Mike and Brad and Nikki, and we actually feel a sense of sadness that we weren't more reactive and understanding or empathetic to their plight now that we're in it. We kick ourselves going, why didn't we, reach out, and, but, we're all navigating this the best we can, and they've been an example to us because it won't stop just at us.
No.
It's going to have, like a pebble in a pond, a ripple effect, and all we can do is be an example of their kindness and reaching out to us and being that support to others, and gaining that strength and knowledge of what we can do and how we can handle things and navigating that, because. And a big part of us talking to you today is the effects behind the scenes that people just don't see. And that our guys probably internalize more than we realize. And we see it. They don't have to speak it, but it's there. So I don't know if that's a fair assessment, Nikki.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Do you think that as this transpired into your geographical area itself, do you think that things could have been done significantly different, looking back and saying hindsight's 2020?
As far as the release, yeah, I think things could have been done way different. First of all, had they given us a heads up, we could have done things to prevent them from denning so close to our cattle, Never did I think they would stick around. There's nothing there except our cattle and a few deer and elk,
That's not the place that everything winters except for cattle and a couple deer and elk.
Exactly.
Everything else is out of the area going to lower elevations.
Yeah. So, yeah, had we maybe been able to do, is it flattery? Something like that around our home places, maybe, just to keep them out in that early release, maybe they would have moved on.
Well, and if I can chime in on that, to your question, I think about this, it's really hard for me not to get upset. Everyone knew what we were getting before we knew that this was a problematic pack. And there's so much scrutiny over how things have unfolded with this pack. And there's a lot of finger pointing and blame for how things have played out. And to Nikki's point, if you knew what we were getting, then why didn't you deploy those non-lethal means in advance then, if you didn't tell us? Because we're under scrutiny, and I see it all the time, and under Facebook, well, if the ranchers would have done everything, are they doing everything in the midst of when there was that actual depredation over Memorial? We've done everything. And, I will say a million times, it's came from Jeff Davis himself. These guys are doing everything they're supposed to do. And, our guys have shown a lot of restraint. And
which was said over and over and over.
Absolutely.
At different levels, yeah.
And I'm going to say this a million times and shout it from the rooftops. We didn't ask for this. But we also, in what we do, and we're ranchers, there's this misconception of who they are. And I've said this to a news reporter. They're not whiskey drinking, horse whipping, dog kicking men. These are men who are protective of the wildlife around them. They're not out shooting bears who are out there being a problem, or mountain lions. They know they're there, and they work and they navigate with that wildlife already. And they weren't against wolves that would naturally migrate, knowing at some point they would come. Just like anything else, they've adapted to that. And I feel a great sense of responsibility should go back to the powers that be, and the responsibility of doing this in a manner that was responsible to the wolves, to the taxpayers, to the livestock growers, and to everybody. You know, doing the right thing is really important. And if you're going to sell an idea and you're going to write the rules, and that's what people buy into, and they have that trust in you, then you follow those rules.
And I think too that a lot of people, including people that promoted Proposition 114, were duped into being convinced that Colorado was the same as so many other places where wolves had been introduced and allowed to grow in significant numbers.
Correct.
And emphasizing the fact that we have 6 million people, and we've heard between 84 and 93 million visitors every year, more than any one of the other 3 states, well, all the 3 states combined, of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. The area that you guys live in, how far are you from Aspen?
We're 30 minutes in terms of a drive. And, you know, to your point too, and I get all this pushback in social media of, well, it's working in Wyoming, or I'm sorry, it's working in Yellowstone, it's working in Idaho, it's working in all these places. And I keep coming back to, there's so much to learn. And if that is what you've been fed, you owe it to yourself to do the homework and study it. Even myself. You have a vast area in Yellowstone that is not populated with homes within walking distance. You have no cattle in that area, and you also don't have a depredating pack of wolves. They are not the same. So let's kind of separate that.
Well, and the
understand.
other deal too is you kind of painted a little bit of a picture that Yellowstone doesn't have the fences.
Correct.
Yellowstone doesn't have the division between BLM and Forest Service and state land and private land within the park. Now, outside of the park, they do, but it's different. It's not anywhere close to what we have. I mean, the geographical area population-wise could be compared to eastern Colorado,
Right.
as far as outside of Yellowstone National Park. But inside Yellowstone National Park, anybody that wants to reference that where you folks live is compared to Yellowstone National Park, they can kiss my ass.
Right.
Well,
They haven't been to either one of them, I don't think.
Right.
No kidding. And I kind of laugh and I think, okay, for the people who want to come out and see a wolf, okay, how about the people who want to go see a buffalo? We all know that every year we get a story on these people who want to glamorize the idea of the West and that we can befriend the wildlife. And there's some of that going on with the wolves too. I mean, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that we can get into later on the proximity of these trails where Nikki's got cows. I've been on those trails running for a nonprofit. And now you've got people who it's questionable are baiting to get the glimpse and the photos and the video footage. And it's just a setup for disaster and the conflict with just human beings. And that's another argument in which people think that there won't be in the percentage of conflict with wolves, but they don't understand. There are so many other things going on behind the scenes that's not reported and that we see on the front that, you know, they need to be aware of. On top of that, you've got, well, we can go down the rabbit hole of different things, but, you know, we have bikers and hikers and, you know, at one point the cattle had moved on and moved up, hence the phone call that we got over the 4th of July weekend. Hey, you know, the range riders are taking off, the cows have moved up, and in that same time frame, you've got someone that I know of who's getting this video footage saying that they're only 40 yards away from them and there's 3 others 100 yards. Makes you question what's going on, and did they entice those wolves to come back down? And then before you know it, you have a storm brewing of his cattle being chased, and who knows what kind of but I don't think they were just chased. You know, nothing just chases without kind of harassing. And so we can't win for losing, whether the animals, whether there's, it just seems like right now in our situation, in the proximity to people and the recreation that is close to us, there's this conflict, and I think it's going to continue on with the fascination of these animals, and they aren't even being left alone to do their thing and move on and get away. To Nikki's point, I thought the same thing. They're going to drop these animals off and they're going to move on. Whatever. They're going to probably move more to the western slope where it's a little bit warmer and there's lots of deer and elk populations that way, a little warmer, and not the case at all. There's a difference between dropping them off where we live and then also in our backyard. And we got them in our backyard and they have not moved on. But I also believe that has a lot to do with their history, and that humans were also a part of their care in all of this. And nobody knows all of this history. I didn't know. But once you find yourself in the middle of all this, you get an education real quick. And then all of a sudden, the things that people are doing that are nuts to get in the middle of it all and just kind of mucking it up a little bit.
What was the sentiment? What was the sentiment in your valley where you guys live overall? Ag producers and non-ag producers, the people that you interact with. What was the sentiment when wolves were dumped in there in January of 25?
I think people were shocked, you know, shocked that it happened right in our neighborhood. Yeah, neighbors very concerned, you know. Yeah, it was just unbelievable.
So when they dropped the wolves, when was the first? Did you start hearing howling?
Personally, I did not. But several neighbors and one of our coworkers at the ranch that lives a couple hundred yards from our house, he could hear them. I think a lot of people heard them.
Did you ever see a wolf?
I have yet to see one.
Yeah, you have yet.
Just
but
video
Have
clip.
you heard him now?
I have not.
You still haven't?
No. But I don't, you know, I'm not out.
You're not out looking for wolves.
I'm not out looking for wolves. I don't
you're not
care.
Range riding,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so how, have you seen or heard?
I question what I've seen. And, you know, when you've been in a place for 18 years and you've seen a few things, you know what's normal and what's not. If what I've seen is what I think, I can tell you it's fast. Almost kind of, it's one of those you feel like you're kind of looking for a unicorn to some degree. But on the other hand, my husband has been out with your husband, and he has heard them, and he has seen them. And just to where we paint a picture, the terrain that you have is got some open parks. It's got thick cover. It's got great big valleys and draws and coulees and ravines and mountaintops and dark timber and aspens, and it's a variety of different vegetation. Yes. So unless they happen to be where you can see them at that particular time, they're a predator. Correct. For the most part. You're not going to see them. I want to ask though, there's a friend of yours that had an interaction that, from my understanding, she was on a walk and she had wolves come to in close proximity where she was at. Correct.
That's what, she had said. It's a neighboring property that we actually lease for grass. We go to it in the spring and the fall. It has a lovely dirt road that they don't mind if people walk their dogs on it, and that's where she was. And this would have been, maybe she told you, I don't know. I think it was maybe in March. And she witnessed a couple animals chasing an elk, I believe. And it was very frightening to her. And she definitely said it was wolves, and she was yelling at them, and it was scary.
That was Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we're gonna try to get some information from her to include in on this as well.
Hi, I'm Elise Collins. I live in Capitol Creek in Old Snowmass, Colorado. I'm a fourth-generation Coloradoan. My family's been here for a very long time. And I'm a homemaker. I love to ride my horses, help with cows. That's about it on that end.
So tell us a story about what you've had with wolf introduction or interactions in your particular vicinity.
Okay, so the wolves were delivered into our valley in January of 2025. And we're hearing wolf calls back and forth most every morning, every evening. And then I decided to take my dog out for a walk in the afternoon. And I was out walking in pretty exposed area, no trees, just a big natural amphitheater. And walked all the way to my turning point, which was about 1.5 miles, 2 miles, turned around, came back, and all of a sudden I noticed this bull elk running through the field with his mouth open, and I thought that was kind of peculiar. And then he jumped over the fence in front of me about 15, 25 yards in front of me, wasn't even concerned about me, jumped over the other fence, ran off up into the sage. And I turned to look for more elk, and I saw 3 wolves, which I thought were coyotes at first. Then I realized they weren't the right color, they were bigger, and they had collars. Then shortly after that, 2 more came over this little irrigation ditch, and I had 5 wolves, and I was between their prey and them. So I was a little concerned, to say the least. I had nowhere to go, no trees, no building. My car was a mile away, and in milliseconds, I'm thinking, what am I going to do to defend myself? And so I decided I was going to get real big and start screaming like a banshee. So they stopped, looked at me. Then I stopped. They started coming at me again. And so I started screaming again. And then they slowed down, still curious. And but I just kept walking briskly, but not running. And then they finally turned around and went back to wherever they were. But I have to say, it was very upsetting. I was scared to death, although I was trying to keep calm. I got home, explained it to my husband, called CPW in the morning, notified them of what had happened, and they said yes, they had a ping on where these wolves were, where I had my encounter. Then several months later, I had a wolf encounter in my front yard. We were up early, I want to say 6:30, and of course I didn't have a phone on me yet. And so we didn't get a picture of it. I don't know if it was a female or male, but it had a collar. It was a gray wolf, no coyote. And he was pretty close to the house. I was very concerned about that. They shouldn't be that close.
Tell me about if you've had any other interactions after what has gone on with the depredations up there, or if you've heard stuff, and how close in proximity are you to that location?
In our proximity to our house to McKay Branch is just over the mesa. So as the crow flies, maybe a 1/2 mile. It's really not that far. Right. They're up on the hill every night. You can hear them about 5 in the morning and about 6 o'clock at night. Almost every single day. Right now, I think they're following the cattle up to the high country, and so I'm not hearing them like I was.
Not like you were.
Yeah.
How far are you away from where you think they might have a den site?
Oh, we're probably at least 3-4 miles
from the den site itself.
Of what I've heard, but then I heard that they also moved the den. Because they're going to follow McDonald's wherever they go.
That's the cattle, the hamburgers.
Yeah.
And so You've had conversations with your other neighbors, obviously.
Yes.
And has there been concerns, based upon the interaction that you've had, has there been concerns about either kids going to school or just people going out for a walk, or
Oh,
you've had
yeah.
company over, and
Absolutely.
everybody wants to go outside? I mean,
Yes. When my kids come up from Denver, I'm like, the dogs have to be on a leash. But then CPW tells us don't have the dogs on leashes because you don't want to get between the wolf and the dog, canine on canine. So, we just have to keep the dogs real close to the house. No roaming around. I am concerned because I have small grandchildren. It's all those things. It's very, very concerning. I see a lot of visitors that are visiting down the street, and they'll be running up and down the road or biking or whatever. They all have headphones on. They all have earbuds in. They don't know. They have no idea. And unfortunately, we've had very little education on how to deal with this. So that's a problem for me, but I'm a safety first gal. So
how long have you lived in that area?
in that area, I've, off and on 40 years, but full time the last 5.
And did you ever have interactions or problems with other wildlife species?
Oh yeah, lots of interactions with bears, coyotes. I have never seen the cat. I know he's around, and I've seen scat, but I've never seen him.
And from the time that they relocated wolves to that specific area,
Yeah.
how long was it until you actually saw the wolves that you had previously reported on?
Well, it was only 3 weeks, a month, somewhere right around that time. They've all been so vague on the details of everything.
Did you guys suffer loss yourselves?
Well, we're part of the McKay Branch.
Okay.
So my husband's family actually owns it.
Okay.
So yes, they're part of that herd. But as to which owners of which cattle, I don't know the finer details of.
And have your dogs, anybody's dogs, paid particular attention to things that they want to turn around and go investigate something differently than what they normally would have done, like with coyotes or anything?
Coyotes, if I notice anything my dog will have a certain bark, whether it's a bear, a wolf, or a coyote, and she'll bark that bark, and then it's like, get inside. So, I just have her inside. I won't mess with it.
Knowing what you know, and knowing that voters of Colorado voted on this, and the way that the wolf management plan has been implemented and the process and so forth, do you see anything based upon what's happening right now that could be a positive result, knowing that the law has to be complied with and that CPW is doing what they're supposed to be doing according to the law?
Yes.
Are there things that you and your family have talked about that would make it easier on producers to make sure that things were done to do the right thing as far as the law is concerned, but specifically do the right thing as far as producers and the general public and the wolves are concerned?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not against the wolf. The wolf is an animal. It's only doing its job. It's not its fault. I find fault with the human community because we were not given the tools to figure out how to deal with an apex predator that we've never had in my lifetime. I mean, I think it was the 40s was the last time they were in Colorado. So I just think that we haven't been given the tools. We don't understand the machinations of this animal. And it's not that we don't want to understand, but we're just not given the tools. And things are very vague. And I think that's a big mistake.
When you come to a meeting like this with you and your husband with Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting, you have people watching your place? Or are you pretty much, is it willy-nilly, you just leave and you just hope for the best?
Well, I don't have any livestock on my particular place, so that's a good thing. I would have somebody if I did have livestock, but no, I don't have any. I'm not concerned it's locked up. But I was concerned initially when I had my first encounter with the wolves because I really didn't want anybody to know, because I didn't want people looky-loos coming around and looking for wolves and thinking that it was this zoo that they could just come to. It's a serious, serious matter. And these animals are not to be taken lightly.
One final thing is, if you had something that you wanted to convey to Colorado Parks and Wildlife as a whole and to your local wildlife staff separately, what would you like to say to them?
Well, I have to say the staff, the boots on the ground, have been as understanding as possible and have worked around the clock. I see these guys going up and down my road day and night. I'm talking 4 a.m, midnight. I see those trucks going up and down. But I have to say that I don't feel that CPW was mindful enough in implementing this wolf reintroduction. It should have taken much, much longer so that they could learn from other states that have implemented this program and really learn from it instead of learn as they go. We've paid a very big price, and I just hope that people on the eastern side of the state will understand that.
If you were asked, well, I'm asking, but if what would be your opinion of Colorado's efforts for ballot box biology?
Absolutely not. No way. We're living it right now. And they tried to do it with the mountain lions, and nope, there's a better way to manage than that.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You bet. If you want to support a company that supported the efforts to defeat Proposition 127, then you need to support Davis Tent. Davis Tent has provided quality canvas goods for outdoorsmen for the last 50 plus years. For more information, go to davistent.com. If you want to support another business that was instrumental in helping us defeat Proposition 127, check out Salida Gun Shop. Salida Gun Shop in Salida, Colorado provides quality products, expertise, and knowledge from individuals that actually do what they sell. Go to salidagunshop.com. Listen to the advice of Cameron Haynes and support companies that are supporting your cause and your efforts. Minturn Anglers is one of those companies. Minturn Anglers provides product and fishing excursions in Colorado and are second to none. For more information, go to minturnanglers.com. I want to emphasize a variety of things in this conversation, but I'm going to ask both of you separately. What is your perspective on wolf introduction in the state of Colorado at this point in time?
I can give you mine. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
My perspective on the wolf introduction in Colorado right now, I can only speak about what I know, and I can speak about my personal experience of what we're dealing with right now. And I think it goes back to the powers that be in the way that they introduced this introduction. And it goes back to what they presented to voters and their management plan. And I know that within that management plan, what was said and what was done are two different things. And I wasn't at all educated about all of that until all of a sudden I needed to be. And I believe that it was an irresponsible move on Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I believe I've met several people who had voted for it, and when asked the question, how do you feel it's going, they've all said to me, that's a decision that I regret. And they had felt that they were misled. And, you know, I want to just for sure make sure that it's known, we absolutely don't have a problem in the sense of wolves. And we're not against wolves by any means. However, we were hoping that that would be something that we wouldn't have this situation where all of a sudden we have this problematic pack and goes against the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Management Plan in translocating them within the state, a known depredating pack. I have an issue with the way it was done. And we are now the ones who are suffering from that decision that we didn't have a say in. We didn't get any sort of notification. You know, we didn't have anybody who said, hey, this is about to happen. Here's how you prepare for it. You know, when a storm is coming, the news will tell you. And then people batten down the hatches and they prepare and brace themselves.
That's a good analogy too, Amanda, because look at that Texas storm, and everybody's criticizing the hell out of the government because they didn't have, warning devices to let people know that you had a giant flood that was coming.
Correct.
That's a travesty.
Right.
But
and that's what I feel, is we're in the middle of a travesty.
For you, on a small scale, it's the exact same thing, that you saw a tidal wave coming that you didn't know was coming until after it happened, and you didn't get fair warning to that.
Correct. And it has impacted not only our family, but so many others. And I think that's the hard part, is when you see somebody who makes and who's in the ranching business, and I really do get tired of hearing too that ranchers have all these subsidies and they're this and they're that and they make a ton of money. I laugh because I think if ranching was so ludicrous, why aren't there more people doing it? And I have yet to have a Birkin and a G-Wagon to drive around in. And that, again, is kind of a joke. But the guys aren't in this business to be given a handout for what was lost. They have worked a lifetime for this and sacrificed time with family and countless other things. And the toll it has taken on every person. And one of my first conversations with Doug Bruchet was the toll it had taken on him and Conway Farrell's and even their marriages. And Nikki and I can say it's also taken a toll on all of us.
You mean it's not a bed of roses anymore?
No. I mean, when you get the last 10 minutes of a day with your spouse and they've got nothing left, those aren't quality hours. And then you have the fear of the unknown. I mean, Michael was out with one of the range riders, and 12 o'clock comes around. I don't know if something has happened. And so I ask my youngest, who can't sleep, where's Dad? Do you think we ought to look for him? Trying not to overreact. We get in the car. We go to look for him, and there's a four-wheeler with no person on it. That does something to you. And luckily he was with the range rider. But I had to say, look, if you're going to be out, you got to at least text us. I understand that you got to be quiet. But, and I guess to go back to your question, and I could go down, we've talked about this, the rabbit hole pretty easy. The reintroduction for Colorado of wolves right now does not make sense to me or at any time. These animals have, to my understanding, we have wolves that are of a different kind. These aren't a hybrid wolf that are, larger, significantly larger. And the wolves that we have are not as problematic as the ones that we specifically have. And that is also part of the whole argument of just coexisting. We don't have a problem with coexisting, but allow what happens to happen naturally and allow us to adjust accordingly and over a given period of time. It doesn't make sense to me that the money that's being spent that doesn't need to be, and it's been said, we have so many other concerns in Colorado that this shouldn't be a priority. I don't want somebody to pay us for a loss. That is not what I want. My husband doesn't either, and I'm sure that your husband and you don't either. They work too hard, and they've spent a lifetime to build, and they've suffered the losses. And to feel as though you have to be left with just deal with it mentality, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. It is an indescribable feeling to feel that you are put in a position that you have obviously no control over, but you feel powerless and you want to do the right thing. You want to protect your animals. When you see a mother cow who and this resonates with us women and just who we are, we would fight the devil for our kids. And to see a mother cow fighting for her calf at the expense of her own life, that does something to you. It really does. And it does something to our men. And it doesn't seem like a choice that is one we can sustain and that makes sense for us. And in this introduction, it makes no sense for me personally.
Nikki, what's your perspective of the introduction from where you stand or where you sit right now?
I feel that they made a really bad choice releasing them in Pitkin County and other counties also. I can't speak of them because I don't know, but our county it just wasn't the right spot. You know,
How do you think that was chosen?
I don't know. I guess because our county voted for it. I don't know. Why would they choose that when it's such a outdoor? Well, all of Colorado there's
Outdoor recreation.
yeah, humans in the high country. You know, so how do they? I don't know how they thought this.
But you mentioned, and I'm jumping around here, and I apologize, but you mentioned you were on vacation, and so when you found out about it, you were on vacation, or
I think so. I think it was like we were due back the next day, and just the neighborhood was blowing up, you know, calling each other.
It was a shock
that they had
honestly.
cited them with trailers.
So when was the first time that you actually found out that the rumors weren't rumors?
On vacation?
No, I think we were home, but, you know, everybody tried to. It seemed like it was in denial, you know?
A lot of it was probably blown out of proportion.
Yeah,
and a lot of it was factual.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you get there again, go back to the auto accident in the intersection.
Yeah.
If you were there or if you knew about it and you did know about it, but whatever.
Well, to your point, there was some reportings in the newspaper and online about specifically 2 armed men who had approached landowners looking for the wolves. That's the story, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
And that they had shown up with AR-15s. First it was rifles and then AR-15s. And
Of course, everything's AR-15.
correct.
You know.
And it didn't make a lot of sense that story had come out. And then for us, I mean, my first reaction in common sense is if somebody shows up on my porch with AR-15s, I'm calling the police. And I'm also going to call the neighbors to say, hey, lock the gates, and there's some crazies out here. So I think not only did we hear and learn about it, but there was perhaps some other narratives out there to kind of perhaps take the heat off of some of the people that may have done it.
You mean like allowed the release?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So let me emphasize, have you emphasize, you have a good relationship with your local district wildlife managers?
we do. They're
we do.
good guys, and I've met them, and that I can tell you was for sure the first time I saw them roll up, I had to go for a drive, and I'm not an overly emotional person. I didn't know they were coming because Mike didn't tell me. All of a sudden, it's a Sunday. We're usually the drill is that we're getting ready to go to church, and I look out, and there's like an entourage. I felt like we were being stormed by the FBI, but we weren't. I mean, they rolled up with their 4-wheelers and flattery, and I had to stop for a minute and say, is this the enemy or is this the friend? For myself personally. And
Now, was that after you already had the depredation?
that was the first one in March.
That
We
was
were
the first one in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had to kind of process a little bit because I didn't know they were coming. I knew what they were coming for. But like I said, I didn't know for sure, is this the friend or the foe? And my heart sank for my husband and our way of life, thinking, is this the new norm? This can't be. And that goes to kind of Nikki's point of, there's that shock value of, is this really happening? Pinch me, am I in my dream? Is this some weird Yellowstone movie that we're a part of? And it was hard.
And have you, prior to the wolf incidents or the dispersal introduction in your area, did you have a decent enough relationship with your area wildlife manager or your district wildlife manager?
I would say the guys did more so than anything.
Yeah.
I know specifically a few guys that, they'd call Mike and say, hey, do you mind if we come up and get some elk sheds? Or they were working with the landowners to kind of observe the elk and do some wildlife things. And always
They always had
Always.
the open gate.
yes.
I mean,
yes.
call us and let us know.
Friendship,
We'll help you out
you know.
however we can.
Absolutely.
There was not an
and-
adversarial relationship there anyway.
No, and that still maintains to this day. I
But
think
but
it's
it's been
awkward,
strained.
But yes, to your point.
It's-
Yeah, it has. I don't think it's been strained. It's just, it's stressful. It's stressful because, like the other day, we had a calf killed, and they came to investigate. And
And that so by the time this airs, that was like the 17th or 18th of July.
yeah,
That calf had been killed.
yeah,
The day of the last day of the commission meeting.
Yeah.
it was a Friday.
Yeah, so the 18th. Okay.
So the range rider happened to find it pretty early morning, and so my husband Brad went up there, checked it out. They protected the carcass, and then as we have made new friends that have gone through this, they have advised us to have a third party on our side, for instance, a licensed veterinarian.
Right.
So it just happened to
For helping identify the cause of death.
Yeah. And so we managed to make all that happen, and our veterinarian came, but it's just I felt bad, like maybe these officers think we don't trust them, but we do. We do trust them, So
well, it's a tumultuous landscape for them to be able to have to navigate and deal with. I mean, anybody that listens to these type of discussions that isn't familiar with, they didn't vote for this. You see it on social media. Well,
For sure.
CBW needs to be held accountable. Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they didn't vote for this. It was forced upon them, and they are enforcers of the law.
Exactly.
And could things have happened differently? I work very closely with the staff and the administration of CPW on a variety of different things. Do I agree with every single thing? No. Do I think that some things could be done better? Yes. But the fact of the matter is, the people that have to live and breathe and eat and drink and sleep this are the ones that are having to deal with it over and over and over. And what I'm seeing personally, and some of my counterparts within or outside of the agency would disagree maybe, is if there was something that could have been fixed the first go around, that maybe you should have taken the appropriate measures to fix it before there became a second go around. Now that's just me.
Right.
But I'm a business guy, a small business guy at that. But if I go to a job site and I screw it up, well, I'm not going to go do the same damn thing at the next job site. I'm going to fix it and make sure I don't screw it up. And if I do screw it up at the first job site, I have to go back and fix it. And so so that's an easy analogy for me to give, but I'm also a wildlife control guy, so I'm dealing with something similar. I'm not talking about stacking bricks and doing landscaping. I'm talking about wildlife versus wildlife. Now, I don't want to be anybody to take that as a critical assessment, but I know that the people that live with this, whether it's squirrels in their attic or wolves in their cattle, or beavers on a waterway that's damming up an irrigation pipe, people have to figure out a way to address things not only for the wildlife that's concerned, but for their own particular situation, to be legal, ethical, and moral, to take into consider animal welfare and animal husbandry, and also be cognizant of the repercussions that come out of whatever the hell happens with whomever is living there. And so, based upon the way things played out and what you saw, and then I'll ask you, what you saw, was there something as you were going through the process of this that you questioned the way it was happening, and then it happened again, or then there was another instance that gave you pause for concern?
So when they first released the wolves, we were told they were a brand new wolves from British Columbia. And it was weeks, maybe months, before we actually figured out they didn't tell us the truth. And I don't know how we figured that. I personally don't know the answer, how we found out some were this Copper Creek pack. I don't know who told us the real truth, but somebody did eventually. And yeah, that's, you can't lie about something like that. They lied to us, you know? Am I getting off the...
No, you're not, because there's if you listen to testimony, if you listen to comments, if you listen to interactions, and I want to emphasize this again, I keep saying emphasize, but leadership within Colorado Parks and Wildlife has their perspective, and the people on the ground have their perspective, just like the accident at the intersection. I'm not saying this is an accident, but you probably don't get the full story on everything, nor do they.
No.
And I say nor do they because maybe the guy that you deal with 5 days a week has a pretty good full story, and maybe by the time it works its way up the food chain, it's not getting the full story, or somebody else interprets it, or they talk to you one day and then talk to somebody else another day, and then they synthesize that and put it together, and they're trying to compile that information to where they can make the best judgment or assessment of the circumstance. Because we know that while your particular piece of property might be feeling the brunt of things, or maybe yours is, other ones in the area are susceptible. And if there's a pack there, this is only going to continue to increase in some capacity, which there is a pack. There's been a lot of consternation about what should be done with the existing population of wolves in that immediate area, and there's been a lot of criticism from a variety of different individuals, whether they're pro-wolf, anti-wolf, agriculture, administrative, political. There's 100 different opinions that are playing into this. But the fact of the matter comes down to that you, in that geographical area, are going to have to continually deal with this as it morphs into something bigger, badder, meaner, faster, stronger. And that's not a positive for somebody that has to deal with what you're dealing with.
Right.
No, and I would say that our local Parks and Wildlife, just as a observation, and I've never dealt with any of these people on this level, and I'm not I had one instance where Mike took our son to a football camp, and he didn't want to for fear that, something may go down, and
At the house.
right,
Yeah.
correct. And it was actually, I'll probably never forget this day, the day after my birthday. June 8th is a day I'll never forget, in calling them, but from the get-go, in the beginning, I don't know that they were set up to succeed. And when you omit the truth, that doesn't mean that you're being dishonest. When you omit things and leave them out, it sure leaves one to think and question truth and honesty, transparency. And then you question, how much does a person care about you and what's happening to you or anyone around you? It doesn't matter if it's a wolf. It doesn't matter if it's us. It doesn't matter if it's our neighbors or anything else. And we learned more about what's coming down the pike, what to expect, that we should have learned from our CPW, not necessarily locally, but they should have been empowered to set us up to also succeed in cooperation with them. We learned more from the guys at Grand County what to expect. And
With the Middle Park stock growers.
absolutely. Doug Boucher reached out to me, and my husband and my husband and Brad are not on social media. And I kept saying, Doug saying, hey, you need to reach out. And finally I contacted him, and we had a good conversation, and he pretty much told me absolutely everything to expect, that mid-July, with a confirmed den and pups, get ready, the slaughter's about to begin. They've got to teach these pups how to hunt, how to eat. And we're definitely not at all yet in the middle of what's to come. We're on the tip of that iceberg, I think. We've heard it. We hope it doesn't become the case. But we now at least have some intel on what may be coming and how to sort of prepare for that, whether it's extra, range riders or people that work at the ranches that are willing to come out and, keep an eye on the ground,
Do you have a pretty close-knit neighborhood watch program as far as wolves are now? I mean,
Well,
I think just employed ranch persons.
Yeah.
Because you get into a mess if you start bringing all kinds of other, people who mean well or want to help. You can get into all sorts of other problems. And, these guys have a protocol and a plan of how they like to do things. And so they only, employ the ones that are able to know the drill and where the cows go, where they need to be, and that kind of thing. Nikki, what do you say?
Yeah, just that would get complicated with just private leases and stuff.
Yeah.
And now they're on the Forest Service leases, and I mean, there's a lot of people up there, but
it's not like this is. You don't drive into your place for 3 miles on a dirt road,
No.
and you don't see any houses.
No.
I mean, it's a fairly well populated area, even though it's not a subdivision.
yeah,
Correct. And, you had mentioned something earlier about kind of the lay of the land and the scenery there. Yeah, there's some thick brush and, timber and stuff. But, I'll point out, it's been in some pretty open area that, Mike was alerted by Brad's ranch hand, Jeff, that, and the neighbors, literally, your cattle are being chased. And that's when Mike had shot to kind of interrupt what was going on in that situation. And that was the weekend that the depredations had occurred. And Brad had already had 2 confirmed, correct? And so the neighbors were, they were observing this from one of their windows in an open field. So if that doesn't speak to the vicinity of some of the people and where these animals are.
I think hindsight is 20/20. But if you had the ability from today, third week in July, to go back, let's just say 60 days, would you do anything different from your perspective, you and your husband? I mean, knowing what you know now and knowing what Middle Park had to deal with, we're just, this is probably hyperbole if nothing else, but would you do anything different? And the reason I say that is because if you would, that would prepare you for what you could plan on doing for the next 60 days, knowing that this thing is not going to go away immediately. So look at the last 60 days. What would you do differently from your own family perspective?
I mean, legally, we can't do anything. I guess the only thing we could have done better was spending more time out there with the herd, not just, maybe not just the one person out there. This is before we got, we didn't have the range riders there for a while.
Because that program was not fully established at the time.
It wasn't. And, we would have to spend more time. And it seems like we are starting to spend more time now that, kind of everything is maybe settling down in other things that we have going on.
Well, the reason I asked too is not just to plant something for the next 60 days, but I'm trying to paint a picture to where people understand, because I saw this during the Gittleson process on the North Park type of depredation issues. People always second guess, armchair quarterbacks that don't know squat about ranching or agriculture. In this transition between the spring and the summer, it's not like you could take your cattle and put them in the smaller allotments or pastures close to the house so you could keep an eye on them. These are on, as Commissioner Jacober indicated, they're on large tracts of ground. Because of the timing, the cattle would then be put onto larger tracts of ground because the allotments would become available through your forest or your BLM permits, and that's when the grass would be available for the cattle to be able to go to that location. And so it's the average person doesn't comprehend the storyline, the timeline of what it takes to run livestock when you have grazing allotments. Now, there's a lot of people out there that don't want us to have grazing allotments at all.
True.
But the fact of the matter is what we have is what we have. And it's not like you could go backwards and say, well, we would have had the cattle in different pastures. Oh, we would have had the cattle wrapped in 12-acre pens with flattery all the way around and Constantine wire.
It's just not available.
It's not feasible to do that.
No, and you have to rotate your animals so that you're able to then to produce the hay that's needed to feed them all winter. Where else are you going to do that if they then are enclosed in a space that you need to grow the hay and produce the hay to feed them all winter? And now what people aren't seeing and understanding is, and Nikki and I had this conversation the other day, typically the elk start trickling in. You don't see a lot. This year's very different. We're seeing bigger numbers. And what do you think they're eating? They're eating that winter feed. And
the
so
same
then,
stuff. You say winter feed, but it's
right.
It's what would be summer grass now, but it would be winter feed later. But the elk have moved into where they're turning around and taking some of the cream of the crop off.
Well, and the thing is so when they come down, and the wolves are where they were supposed to be eating upon their natural diet of elk, or preferred, apparently. What leaves the wolves? Where is their next meal coming from? It's from the cattle that are there, because the elk are like, I'm out of here. Forget that. They've come down to now encroaching into that part of, and some of that, it's natural, and this is what's expected. But the number of elk coming down, I have great worry knowing that they're putting a dent into that feeding for the winter. And what that equates to is the cost that our men have to bear in buying hay in a year with drought.
Or if you don't feed them as good and you have a bad winter, then or your weight's down, or you're stressed.
Absolutely.
A variety of things. The average person doesn't know the complexities of being able to turn around and facilitate a process for this depredation side of things, for the livestock loss or the weaning side, or the weight side, or the stress side, or whatever it might be classified as. There's a variety of things depending on what you have to deal with. When just as an example, if you have a bad winter, cattle are going to suffer in some degree, just as deer and elk would.
Correct.
But if you have an increase in public recreation, and it's screwing with the weaning of calves and fawns, or lambs and calves and the livestock end of it, or if you have a fire, or if you have a drought, it all is subjective to a lot of things that go into play with this. But when you have wolves in a specific area and you're having to deal with all this other stuff at the same time, it's got to have a cross-pollination effect at so many different levels. But a lot of it happens because you have wolves in a specific area and you can't do what you need to the way that you need to do it.
Correct.
Put your cattle where you need to put them, take them out when you need to take them, have all this other livestock issues on everybody else's property, or have the deer and elk issues on everybody else's property. I'm trying to give a visual just somebody that's listening or watching this on YouTube to say, well, that's a hell of a lot more complicated than I ever thought it would be.
Well, that's where I'm coming from. And just, the fact that you don't have to be a biologist and you don't have to understand that this is a ripple effect. And to me, I'm just observing, and I'm not trying to argue for science and biology. I'm arguing for what I see in front of me that's not been our norm and that I can see coming down the pike. And where I hear people say, oh, well, you're going to get more money than that cow's worth. And, these ranchers, they get subsidized for all this. It's not a sustaining plan. And when you're in a year of drought, these guys are doing everything they can to keep from the land burning up. And this is the same land that the elk eat from, the same land that the cattle eat from. This is what they do. So then you throw in the complexity of these unknown animals and an unknown unpredictable pack. What are you expecting them to do? They're doing everything they can to protect all animals and all wildlife and the land. And they're being crushed. And it's heartbreaking, and it angers me and upsets me that for all that they do and they work for, I'm sorry, but a payout in court under a management plan that says you're entitled to, but you have to spend thousands of dollars to get, is an absolute injustice.
The people are spending a lot of time to turn around and get
what they were
compensated.
told they would get and what voters also agreed for. And that's upsetting to me. And, as one person said in the commission, if you go into my house and you steal my jewelry and you steal things that matter to me, there's a value to that. And you don't minimize it. This is the same thing. But I'll tell you, there's a lot more that goes into that than just what can be replaced. And I didn't think I'd get emotional about it, but there is no price on the toll that it takes on family and the loss, what will be lost. And I know that my marriage has taken a backseat to all of this, and a guy that comes home who hasn't eaten, who's exhausted, who will take a 5-minute opportunity to eat and fall asleep for 3 hours, that I don't wake up because I know he's got nothing left. And you cannot put a price tag on everything they've spent their life to build and create. They were handed lands that were a Pinto, and they'll hand over an Escalade later. And what you do to them, you do to me and anybody else. And we are getting the same thing that these Middle Park families got. And I am saddened that we didn't have more of an awareness. And we are not going to be the only ones affected by this. And it will break you if you allow it to. And the people who did this, when you say you accepted a known depredating pack of animals as a landowner, you have said to me, I do not care about you. I don't care about your cattle. I don't care about anything you need to survive. I want it gone. I got news for you. We're not going anywhere. Agricultural people, they don't quit. They don't quit when it's raining. They don't quit when it snows. They don't care if there's a fire. We're a different breed. And what we do is we band up and we help each other. We aren't going to give up. That's just who we are. And we're just not going to do that. We're not going to give up. And like anything else, you roll with it and you keep going. We have young people in our lives that we're also trying to instill that when times get tough, you don't quit. And it's just too bad that people do not understand the price that this has cost. It's not about a check from the government at all. And you just can't put money to that. You just can't. And these guys are doing everything they can for the good of everybody and everyone around them. And I didn't think I would cry, but it's more of the passion and what I see in these guys and the loss that they take.
But it sounds like a lot of it is somewhat self-inflicted from the government side.
It's
To
hard
some
not to
degree.
take it personal.
Yeah.
And
Because it affects you. It affects your family. It affects your livelihood. It affects your day-to-day operations. And what I would say is, and I'll ask Nikki, we know how this came about, and we know what cards we were dealt as a state. I'm not just saying me or the ag industry or whatever. As a state, people voted on this. That's just the natural cycle of attrition of a democratic republic. You know, that we have the option with citizens petitions, ballot initiatives to be able to do that in 26 states. Do I agree with it? No. But it's the process we have, so we have to figure out a way to change it. Who do you blame for the way things that have turned out?
Well, the voters are to blame for voting for it, but I don't think they actually understood what they were voting for. I blame Governor Polis.
And do you think that, I mean, it's not like Governor Polis is taking wolves and putting them on the ground himself. I mean, there's a directive that goes along with this process. But if you had a chance, we'll go up the food chain. If you had a chance to talk to Governor Polis, what would you say to him?
I would ask him why. You know, what is so romantic about having a wolf in a highly populated state?
And if he said, well, people brought that to the ballot and the people voted on it and I didn't have anything to do with it.
I don't believe that, you know.
Well, let's just say hypothetically, and I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, that based upon who ran the ballot initiative and whether who supported it or not, but who ran it and how it came to fruition, what would you say to him if he was saying, I didn't have anything to do with that? Okay, well then what about how it actually transpired?
Yeah, I would like to know that. I don't know that, you know. I don't know.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
If you had a chance to sit down, or have you had a chance to sit down with Director Davis or Executive Director Dan Gibbs?
I have not. My husband Brad and I believe Mike did.
So separate from that conversation, if you had a chance to talk to Director Davis yourself, knowing what your husband's already discussed and to some degree, what would you say to Jeff Davis?
I guess I seriously want to know how they thought that this pack of wolves that they captured for bad behavior, how did they come to the conclusion that they thought it might work in another county? But another county with, I think, way more human population, you know? And then why would you go and release them in the only two cattle producers in that neighborhood? They released them in our backyard.
It feels personal.
Yeah,
Feels
they won't
personal.
tell us
It does.
where. They won't tell us where. We've tried to figure it out. It's supposed to be a private land. All fingers are pointing in one direction, but I would hope that I
We're
would
wrong?
I would
Be
hope
wrong?
that we're wrong, but all fingers point one way.
So I'll ask Nikki and then I'll go back to Amanda. If you were queen for a day, because we can't have no kings, so that we've already gone through all that stuff politically, but if you were queen for a day, what would you like to see happen moving forward in the next 60, 90, 180 days, given the circumstances that are happening right now and the depredation that you know that you guys have had in that general vicinity, and that the trials and tribulations of get ready for winter and do all your fall gathering and do everything that you need to? What would you like to see in the next 60, 90, 180 days?
I would love to see the Copper Creek wolves be captured, and I would like to see something good happen for them. But I just, where would that be? Antarctica? I don't know, somewhere. That's what I would do. I would remove all the wolves in the bad areas, the wolves that are causing issues for producers, and I would stop the reintroduction.
Pause or stop?
I would stop it.
What do you think about conversations about the pause?
We've already got packs having pups, and then they're going to move and find others. They're going to reproduce already with the amount that we have. So pause, I would like to see a pause for many years, just to see what we've already got, to see what happens to them. I think that is fair, I don't know how long they're talking about pausing.
Yeah, you hear stories about, a year or whatever until all the non-lethal measures could be adequately and appropriately put in place, which some have, but there again, you had range riders on the landscape, and most recently last week, the 18th of July, you had a calf depredation, and there was range riders in the area, maybe not right there, but a range rider found that.
Yeah,
you said. If you had your druthers, and there's not going to be a pause, and there's not going to be a removal to put them in captivity or to do something different, what options would you think could be employed over the course of the next 60 or 90 days that would be a benefit to you and your family in the area where all your neighbors are? You think it could be a better level of action, a better level of communication, a better level of I'm not saying leniency, but the ability for the producer to make a knee-jerk reaction when it was deemed necessary, as long as they had legitimate proof?
Right. Well, I wish that were definitely available. Better communication. I wish we had more information on collar data. I wish they would tell us, give us more information about where they're at, so we could try to detour ourselves more. But I believe they give the range rider some information, but that country up there it's not easy to get around,
There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, it's not inaccessible. It's just, the level of accessibility is difficult.
Yeah.
Just because of the terrain.
Yeah. You better have some nice horses to ride.
Yeah. So if you had your druthers, because I know you're sitting there biting at the bit, you're chewing
Me?
your cud going,
No.
so ask me. Ooh.
Do I really have that energy? I've had a lot of time to think about this.
Yeah.
Especially being home alone.
So
wondering what's going on.
60, 90, 180 days, what would you like to see besides going out and creating Armageddon? We know that's not feasible.
Correct. And I think that I want to reiterate over and over and over, our guys and those of us that are in it in Pitkin County, we are not, our goal is not to go out and just shoot and kill wolves. Okay? These wolves are here because they were brought here by someone else. They aren't getting a fair shake. And so if I were a queen for the day, and I'd back it up prior to 60 days, I would exercise authority in which I have to live with just in society, that if I break a rule, I have accountability. And Commissioner Davis broke that rule.
Director Davis. Yeah.
Director Davis broke that rule. A written plan that voters also signed off on under that. And we as a society, voters who did or did not vote for it, should be able to exercise the authority at some point to hold accountability for that decision. And there's a lot of money that all of us are paying for that's being spent on this program that's already $2.2 million over budget. And then you have people up in arms in that same management plan who do not want to make the wrongs right under those terms and pay those who are entitled with preponderance of evidence and proof that's compelling that they are deserving of that, and had to spend the money themselves also to get that to come to fruition. That's not cool. That's not fair. So we would make sure that we would go back to those plans and follow the guidelines in which they were written, and accountability would come under those terms. And, you know, for an immediate solution, and I don't know if it's the correct one, because we don't want Armageddon. We are in a close proximity to others. Delisting those animals that, to me, makes sense. We've got others, if you want to model New Mexico, who, you know, they defunded the program. Perhaps we defund that program. Delisting them, though, if we're going to keep the existing packs here and not remove them all, because that may not be a feasible solution, but the ones that we know that can be tracked with the collar data, send them back to where they came from. You know, and I don't know that it's a long-term solution, putting them back in the sanctuaries that they can live out their days peacefully. Again, they did not ask for that. Senseless killing is not something we're into up in Pitkin County. I think that's a fair thing to say. And so for those animals right now that are a problem, and for this program, it needs to end. It's not a program in Pitkin County that's a fit, and that needs to be recognized. We are not in a vast area like Yellowstone, where these animals aren't, you know, the wolves are in the middle of producers. They were a problematic pack. And where it's working successfully, there's money in which people have been able to employ more employees. And, you know, Nikki had said that they have more, they wish they had known that they needed to have more presence and everything else. I'm sorry. I only have 8 hours in a day, and I don't want to spend 24 of those also chasing wolves. That's not a sustainable plan either, and for our livelihoods. And when you have men sleeping out in fields, that's not going to work either.
So I'm going to interrupt real quick. As long as you've lived there, have you had bear issues?
We have not had bear issues. We've had bears around, but we have not had any conflict with bears or problematic bears.
Nikki?
No. Can't say that we
Mountain lions?
have.
We've seen scat. I've heard them.
But not
once
causing,
in 18 years.
Not causing damage.
No.
No.
I don't think so, you know.
So I guess we know that we have roughly 5,000 mountain lions in the state of Colorado. We somewhere around 20,000 bears, or maybe it's give or take a couple thousand. We have 25 wolves or 27 wolves or whatever the hell the number is, depending on if you count collared or non-collared. You've had more instances in the last 6 months with 8 to 10 wolves in that geographical area than what you've had in 18 years or more with hundreds and hundreds of mountain lions and bears over that time frame. I'm not saying at the same time, like there's a whole herd of mountain
Right.
lions and bears. But over 18 years, you've had a lot of bears, a lot of lions. That geographical area has had bear and lion encounters with people for quite some time, all the way down to Carbondale and Glenwood Springs.
Correct.
The wolf has created more turmoil
Oh,
on something in a 6-month period than all of that other stuff combined. And I think that that's worthy to note for somebody to say, yeah, but they just did this, and yeah, but they used to do that.
Or the 1% of human conflict. Well,
Yeah.
okay. That might be correct in a regular situation, but you have these animals that were problematic, that also were put in a sanctuary. They were fed by humans for 5 months. This is not a regular pack of wolves. And I've heard the testimony too that they're the most watched by CPW, and they themselves do not have an answer of why this pack has not moved on. Their behavior is not of a normal pack as well. This isn't something we've made up. This is their own data. The proof is in the behavior. There's nothing to
and it's
argue.
only going to continually get more convoluted or more confusing as things move on. And I got to continually state that the challenges that Colorado Parks and Wildlife has to deal with in this particular introduction process, and the money that's been expended, and the accountability or the transparency or whatever lack thereof is, it's something to where those are issues that I would hope that in the next 60, 90, 180 days, that some of those things get appropriately addressed. Now, I'm not saying that they haven't attempted in some capacity. We know that things have improved. But while they're discussing it on one end and then having votes on payments at a commission meeting, then the very next day they have another depredation. And then from my understanding, there's been another one up and around Meeker of sheep from supposedly hearsay at this point in time. I don't know specifically.
I've actually seen video or a photo of it.
Yeah, of an uncollared.
Yeah.
Uncollared wolf.
Correct.
And so these are things that I believe that not only is Director Davis, and Jeff Davis and I talk occasionally, and we work together on different things because I'm involved in so many things with Parks and Wildlife. There's a lot of things that he has to figure out a way to navigate, as does Executive Director Gibbs, as does the executive management team within Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And how they ever decide to do that is hopefully they get a chance to do it better from experiences that were learned. But no matter what you did previously, and I'm not going to go on a soapbox here because when Jeff or anybody else watches this podcast, they're going to turn around and chastise the hell out of me. No matter what you did previously does not mean that it's going to work perfectly moving forward in that 60, 90, 180 days, because wolves will do what wolves do, and they will adapt their lifestyle around whatever conflict resolution attempts, lethal or non-lethal, that have been employed. And so you have a litter that is going to be reared, that they're going to have to feed, and you're going to have pups that don't act like somebody else did or didn't. And I think that those are things that we have to be cognizant of, that adaptive management for wildlife management is just that. It's adaptive. And you have to be able to change on a moment's notice. But you have to plan for what is likely to be the inevitable. And I do that in the wildlife control side of it. That's why they do in wildlife management models and objectives, and they have peaks and flows and ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys. I don't want anybody to put the blame specifically on one person or one division. But if it's going to work, the people that are feeling the adverse effects, the boots on the ground people, are going to have to be addressed, in my opinion, more expeditiously, more appropriately, with a lot more transparency and accountability, because this is not going to end. And we know that Governor Polis will be out of office by January 12th of 2027. The election's in 2026. This wolf deal is not going to end with Governor Polis leaving. It's not going to end if a new director comes on board. It's not going to end if a new executive director comes on board. And so looking from it from your perspective and knowing that you have a year and a half or 2 years or 10 years, maybe it's 20 years that you're going to have to continually deal with this issue. You as a mother of two and a cattle woman and a partner in crime when it comes to dealing with what you have to deal with on a daily basis. She gave a pretty good synopsis of what she wants to see. What do you not want to see in the next 60, 90, 120 days? You and your family and your walls, you have to live with it. This is going to be the first fall you have to go through, the first Christmas you have to go through, the second denning location that you're going to have to go through next year. What do you want to see not happen?
I would like the stress to stop. Every day it seems like there's something new we learn or we hear about, and I just wish it would stop. Why can't we just go back to somewhat normal? It's just I don't want to see any more stress.
It's affected you personally.
It's hard. The other day when they were doing the investigation on the calf last Friday, there were several people standing around, and here comes Mother Cow, and she just bolds her way in there. Her calf is now naked because that's how they have to do the investigation. So yeah, it's hard. It's that is sad. I know things die, but
and you raise stuff to feed, but there's an animal husbandry part that goes into it, that it's part of who you are and what you do for existence.
Yeah. It's just sad that there's one more thing on our list that now we have to be concerned about.
That you have no control over.
Yeah, we have absolutely no control over it. And, it makes a guy want to quit, because it's hard. It's hard to put that much skin in the game and time to raise this herd that you care so much about, to just, watch it just do its thing right in front of your face.
I mean, life and death is a normal cycle of attrition on livestock production, one way or another. I mean, people often mention about disease or lightning strikes or predation or whatever, and the ultimate deal is after you're raising something and you're putting it in the food system for human consumption. So life and death is part of it.
Yeah.
But can you synthesize, Nikki, why does your family do what they do, and why do they have such a adverse love for what you do, to get people to understand what it means to produce what you produce and why you do what you do?
Well, it's a way of life that we love. Can most of the time pick your own hours, during certain seasons. It's so rewarding to see a nice set of calves leave with a buyer and knowing that you're going to feed a bunch of people eventually with that. It's just rewarding. Hard work, but
can you ever imagine giving it up?
Oh, no. I mean, no. I know we won't, because my husband especially won't.
But do you feel like that somebody's trying to take it away?
It does feel like that. It feels like they're forcing our hand to you know, change what we do. Like, why us? You know? Why are you picking on us? You know, that's how it feels. Oh. Yeah.
How about you?
I feel the same way. I look at my husband and I tell him, this is family. What you do to you do to me. And
Why don't you just go get another job? That's what somebody would say.
Exactly, yeah.
Well,
Why don't you just do something different?
because you know what? Not many people get to live a life where they wake up every day and it's not a job for them.
Thank you.
And
That's
it's not for
good.
the faint of heart. And it's the end result of what you do that, yeah, you don't have to love cattle. You don't have to love beef, but there are plenty of people who do. And when they drive past a field that's hydrated and not burning up, and they get to see the wildlife that's amongst it, that was probably done by a rancher. And what so many people buy into in the state of Colorado is what they see that doesn't always happen naturally. But I would say that that was done by a livestock producer, the stewards of the land. What you enjoy and what you see was probably at the hand of someone that sacrificed a lot. I saw a video once of a man's hands, and my husband's hands are this way. They cracked, they're bleeding, and people tell me, what's wrong with your husband's hands? Does he have a condition? Yeah, it's called hard work. And this little boy says to his dad, Dad, do your hands hurt? He said, son, are you hungry? He said, no. He said, are you happy? Yes. Are you comfortable? Yes. And he said, son, my hands don't hurt. And that's what I see too. There are some things you can't teach in a classroom. There are things that you won't be able to see on TV or in the news or on social media that there's this way of life and instilling in your kids. And we talked about this too. I have boys. And one day they'll be taking care of their families and providing. And this world will hand you your butt. I don't care if you're a ranching family or not. There will be times that the life will just hand you something that can destroy you. And you have the choice to either allow it to do that or to rise above it and do something about it. And like her daughters, and I said, you know, I've got boys, but you have daughters. Whether it's raising kids or it's raising boys. And in this world we live in right now, you've got to be ready for whatever comes at you because it can destroy you if you let it. And that's something you learn with the life and death of what we do. And no one will ever understand what it feels like to have someone else to be at their mercy. But you don't just give people what they want either. And I'll tell you something I think about in this with the resolution of all of this. Not many people have the ability to go back and make a wrong right. And I feel the solution in this situation, whether you voted for it or you didn't, or maybe you were deceived or you were lied to, we have the ability to make a decision collectively as a community to say, let's do the right thing for the wolves, the taxpayers, the livestock producers, and everyone in the cattle by ending it. Let things be done. Let the wolves live out their lives. And it can all be done peacefully. It can be. I do believe that. But do the right thing. And not many people have that ability or opportunity to do that. And you have a situation. Yeah, we were lied to. Yeah, people weren't transparent. We all know that. But you have to go home and you have to live with yourself at night. And if you have the ability to fix it, and you don't, I hope that sticks with you. Because you have that moment now to do that. And that does not come often. And I think long and I think hard about that. And also, the best teachers we have in life are mistakes. And here we are, we had that mistake and we all could learn from with our Grand County folks in Middle Park. We are echoing that same mistake. Do not do it again. And my fear, fast forwarding, is that Nikki and I will be reaching across the state and saying, how can we help to another family? What can we do?
That's a perfect segue into what I was going to say is, what piece of advice, I'll start with you, what piece of advice would you give somebody else in another location in the state that started to go through some of what you guys have had to endure, knowing what the Middle Park guys had already had to deal with, knowing what the North Park guys have already had to deal with? You've had to live this and breathe it and eat it. What piece of advice would you give somebody else in Routt County or Hinsdale County that was going through the same thing, and you knew that it was early on in the stages? What would you tell them?
Well, for me, I would tell them, get educated about it, because I am not and trying to catch up, you know.
You're behind the curve.
I am behind the curve, you know. So yeah, educate yourself. Get with your team, you know, all these friends that have, you know, these new friends that we have. It's just wonderful. It's given my husband a lot of relief, you know. My husband is a talker. He loves to converse with someone that is
in the trenches with
yeah,
him, so to speak.
in the trenches with him. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, surround yourself with people who care, you know, and get educated.
Nikki? Oh, sorry. Amanda?
You know, it's funny, and I would, you know, definitely agree with Nikki on that. It's funny because conversations with people, now what does depredation mean? Okay, wait. And what's diversionary feeding? I'm like, wait, I got you. I'm now a wildlife expert on top of everything else and far from it. And then the politics. I had no interest in any of that. And to be quite honest with you, there's a lot of it I still don't have an interest in.
But it's kind of lesser of two evils, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And to supplement and support Nikki's thinking, you know, we've had conversations feeling like we're out there, and I think Mike said it in the first meeting, we're out there in the ocean in a little boat and we're taking on water with the Dixie cup. And you feel like you're drowning out there. You're not alone. Just remember that. And these guys in Middle Park really set the example of don't wait for your neighbors to be drowning when you know something's coming. Be there ready to rescue them and have a hand. That taught us, and we're so grateful to them for what we didn't know that nobody's, you know, either divulged or given us the tools to kind of keep going on. And don't give up. Don't give up. You know, this was the West. You know, there have been things that people in the West and this way of life has had to deal with for many, many years and generations. And a part of why we're doing this, I said to Nikki, this is a legacy of the story that we can later have to pass down to our families and to be that strength and support for one another. And this will be, unfortunately, a part of that story. But it is a part of that. It is going to be the story that we have and for the future and how we get through it all.
Well, I think this is probably an ongoing conversation, and I say this often because most of our guests, you know, they have ongoing lives and circumstances, and I would feel an absolute pleasure and privilege to have you guys back on as this starts to formulate into some other sort of resolve. And maybe that's a virtual component, and maybe Sean and I just come over and see you guys and set up there in the living room somewhere or in the barn and just get an update, because this is an experiment. Wolf introduction by voter initiative on a level of this it's the first time in the world. It's never been done, and so it's an experiment. You're gonna endanger a species or a threatened species that was been brought in by public opinion. That public never had to deal with anything about it unless they were living, breathing, eating, sleeping it. And so I appreciate both of you coming on. This is going to be an ongoing conversation, and it's going to be a story to tell, I think, as a historical recollection to some degree. I sat on the stakeholder advisory group for almost the full 18 months on the wolf introduction. And at that time, they were compiling interviews. At the completion of the stakeholder advisory group, they were compiling interviews with stakeholder and technical working group participants to have as a historical reference, to go back and through the process. Well, they haven't done anything with that yet, and I'm not so sure that they're going to. But it's sitting in the archive somewhere for somebody to synthesize and edit to create some sort of a documentary. But I think that these type of conversations, and as I told Doug and Tim, are important, because when you get a chance to speak on a hot mic at a commission meeting, you get a minute and a half, 2 minutes, 3 minutes tops. I don't think it's ever going to go back to 3 minutes. Excuse me. If you're talking to the legislature and testifying in a committee, it's a minute and a half, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And unless you have it scripted so well that you've got 5 or 6 people behind you to say the exact same thing, only in a different context, you don't have time to get your point across. Now, if you listen to the appointed people or the elected people, they say, well, just write a letter and we read it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But I know that public testimony and personal interaction is imperative. And I think that I feel privileged at this point in time with the Through the Gates podcast to be able to at least have a little bit of a knowledge of what we do and what needs to be done because of our intimate knowledge of the wildlife resources in Colorado and the management of that. And then to give you guys the opportunity to have a discussion. And so what I would say is utilize it to your benefit. And if you say that, hey, I'd like to get back on, or some things have changed, I mean, this is our format. We can do whatever the hell we want. But I would ask you in preparation for closing this segment up, if you had final thoughts that you want the general public or elected officials or appointed individuals to know that you wanted to get out of your head, off your chest, what would you say as a closing final thought in this segment of our conversation?
I think, there's so much that words can't say, that when something's put in front of you that would speak volumes, I would invite any of those people to come and see an investigation of what it looks like. And to see, I've had it just like Nikki, to watch a mother cow come over to a tarped calf that's waiting to be investigated to its death, stand and bawl even with that tarped body, to see kind of what it does on the other wildlife and how that does affect them, to see that mother bawl for that calf and want to protect it even though it's no longer alive. I would like for them to look us in the eye, shake our hands, talk with us, and know that we're people. When we cut, we bleed. When we are sad and when we're upset, we cry. And we have a heart to do the right thing too. And this was something that was inflicted upon us that we didn't ask for. The wolves didn't even ask for it. And I guess moving forward, there is nothing I can say because of the unknown of all of this. I'm hoping that what we've been told does not come to fruition, but I'm prepared for it as these pups emerge. and they're being taught to do what their parents are teaching them to do. And I hope that all the mama cows that started the summer with the calf, they come home with that calf. And I'm hoping that I don't have to see the look of devastation and upset on my husband's face for everything he has worked for to be gone, and what that's going to equate to for him, and what's been lost with our own family in his time and his effort, and our neighbors, that we're not going to have to continue this conversation, and for others moving forward. I don't really have an answer for that. I'd love to say, and like I said a minute ago, we all get to say we live happily ever after. I don't know that that's reality, but we can hope for it.
Okay. Nikki, final thoughts?
Well, I love what you say, Mandy, about just if more people could just experience the devastation of what's going on. You don't know until it's happening to you. And yeah, it would be, I just wish it could just go away, lighten up a little bit, I mean, we're tough, we experience death in other ways with our cows, sickness or calving problems. But we know how to fix those things. Sometimes we can't always fix them, but we do know how to do that. We don't know how to fix this current problem, and you just feel so helpless.
Ladies, thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to sit and have a conversation with you. And if there's something we can do in the process, I mean, we do a short version once a week, and if you want to get back on at some point in time, we can do that. We can probably do that via Zoom or whatever. And as I said, I mean, if push comes to shoves, we can always come back over there, and Sean and I can come over. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is going to get better, maybe it's going to get worse, but it'd be nice to be able to tell the story in longer segments than a minute and a half, mm-hmm. or a little bit of a blurb on a news story on Channel 9 or something in Colorado politics where it's taken out of context, or there's little things here and there. This format, I believe, gives people an opportunity to look at a significant, uncut, unedited mm-hmm. version of somebody's life and their perspective and their perception. And so I just appreciate the opportunity for both of you to come in, and I know that you were nervous about it. I hope that it turned out a little bit better than what you maybe thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Good. Well, we got a good episode of Through the Gates, and if you haven't paid attention to the repercussions of the resolve of Proposition 114 in 2020, this is where it's at this point in time, and it's only going to continue to get more drama-like, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. But for more information, keep following us along on Instagram and Facebook, and also at the podcast with Through the Gates. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.